Good afternoon, everyone. We'll just wait a minute or so for everybody to join us. A long minute, isn't it? Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to our lunchtime webinar called Feast of Knowledge. It's an opportunity for us to look into and understand a little bit more about about Ramadan, and in particular Ramadan as it might be experienced within the workplace. So I'm absolutely delighted to have with us our special guest, Sherene Hassan, who's the Director of Education and Community Engagement at the Islamic Museum of Australia, and Sally Tyrrell, who's the Project Manager of A Taste of Harmony. So it's delightful to have both of you here. The way we will structure this today is that Sherene and I are going to have a bit of a chat, and then Sally's going to join us nearer the end of that. And then we're going to welcome as many questions as we possibly can from all of you. Please use the chat for putting your questions down in there, and we'll work our way through as many as we can. Of course, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we're meeting and pay our respects, all of us, to their elders, past and present. And if any of you would like to acknowledge the lands from which you're coming from, please don't hesitate to put that into the chat as well. As I mentioned, we've got two guests with us today, Sally and Sherene, but also that this event is being recorded. So hopefully everybody is comfortable with that. And we are really interested during this session to spend a bit of time to have an opportunity to hear from Sherene, who's a very highly regarded education expert. I personally have experienced taking tours with her at the Islamic Museum of Victoria, and she is a real trailblazer for many in not only the education sphere, but also for Muslim women overall, but also in encouraging really respectful interfaith dialogue across the community. So I'm thrilled to have her there. We're also really interested in having some interactive discussion as we go on, and providing you with some practical insights and strategies that you might like to think about, but also perhaps consider exactly how we deal with the various comments and questions that people might get within the workplace around Ramadan, and then talk about how that might apply for those that are celebrating A Taste of Harmony. And we hope everybody is registered and going to join us in celebrating A Taste of Harmony. So I might just move straight to talking to you, Sherene. It's really delightful to see you there again, and to spend some time talking to you. Of course, most of us would have a greeting such as Ramadan Kareem or Ramadan Mubarak. I wonder if you could perhaps explain the significance of Ramadan and that sort of a greeting, and how that plays out, and who typically participates in Ramadan.
Thanks so much, Anthea. It's an absolute honour and delight to be here this afternoon. So Ramadan is significant because Muslims believe the Holy Quran was revealed in this month for the first time. It's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So Muslims also are expected to pray 5 times a day, go to pilgrimage to Mecca, give charity. So it's one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And there are Muslims that are exempt from fasting. So, for example, if you're a child, if you're sick, elderly, if you're pregnant or a lactating woman, you don't need to fast. Even if you're a professional athlete, if you're a traveller, all those people are exempt from fasting. But I know with my children it was a bit tricky, because my youngest son would always want to fast. I remember he was about 8, And I said, what are you having for breakfast? He said, I'm fasting. I said, no, you're not. You know, this skinny little kid. I said, no, you're not. And he said, no, I really want to fast. I said, okay, you can have breakfast and then you can fast until recess. And his older brother's like, oh, that's so silly. He wouldn't normally be eating. I'm like, you be quiet. So children often sort of feel it's not usually something that we tell them to do, just because the whole household's doing it. They sort of want to be part of it. But in terms of greeting, it's lovely hearing Ramadan Kareem and Ramadan Mubarak, because it's when I grew up. I was born in 1969, but when I went to school in the 70s, 80s, it was something that was unheard of, and I'm only just hearing it a lot, last sort of 5-10 years. So it's lovely. So basically, Ramadan Kareem means generous, have a generous Ramadan, or a blessed Ramadan Mubarak means blessed Ramadan. And if you can't remember that, just say Happy Ramadan.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Now, you just mentioned that it was during this month, but in actual fact, when Ramadan occurs changes. So how do we go about setting those dates? And how, is it the same all across the world? So exactly when is Ramadan?
It's a really good question. So Muslims follow a lunar calendar. So it goes, so all our religious festivals and occasions are determined by the phase of the moon. So which means that Ramadan is 10 to 11 days earlier every year. So my family, when they moved came to Australia in 1966, Ramadan was at Christmas time. When I started fasting when I was 14, Ramadan was in May, and now sort of 40 years down the track, Ramadan's in March. So it's 10 to 11 days earlier every year, and that way people from all over the world can experience fasting in different seasons. There's a difference of opinion as to when Ramadan starts, and sort of, every year we sort of have a bit of a debate in the Muslim community. Some people follow the calendar, the scientific calculations, and sometimes scientific calculations can differ. So, for example, it might say that the new moon is born on Sunday, but you actually can't view it or see it until Monday. So there's a difference of opinion. So that's why you'll see some Muslims started fasting, for example, this Ramadan on Monday, and others started on Tuesday. So there is a difference of opinion when Ramadan starts and ends, but it can't go longer than 29 or 30 days.
So is there a body that sets when those times are, or is there an app that people can look at in order to figure that out? How do they actually decide it for themselves?
Yeah, so there's the Board of Imams. They usually put out a statement a few days prior. This year it was a bit delayed, actually. And there's also another group that's sort of the moon sighting group, who they like to actually see the moon for themselves, and they send out their statement. So you sort of choose which school of thought you want to follow.
Now that's within Australia. Are there similar groups in other countries around the world?
Yes. And there's usually a notification in the media, for example, when Indonesia starts fasting, or the big Muslim countries, or Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Indonesia, when they start fasting.
Okay, and very interesting. And it must be something that really does bring the community together, because everybody all over the world is actually experiencing this or going through this at the exact same time.
Exactly.
So for you, Sherene, but generally for all those that are participating, what does a typical day look like for somebody that is experiencing Ramadan, and does it change during the course of the month? I imagine everybody's trying to do the same thing, abide by the restrictions, the requirements, but what does it actually look like day by day?
So a typical day in Ramadan, we would wake up before sunrise. Some people need a whole hour to knock something up in the kitchen. Others, like myself, value sleep more than so I probably, my husband and I probably need about sort of 25 minutes or so. And so I'd wake up around 5:15 and have a substantial breakfast, a little bit more than what I would normally, and a litre of water. So the water is the key thing. And lately we've started to incorporate hydrolyte. So that's a bit of a hack there. So you'd have something substantial for breakfast. And again, depending on the individual, it might be a sort of leftovers from the night before, or it might just be cereal and eggs. And we would abstain from eating and drinking until sunset. And it's not just not eating and drinking, it's also your whole behaviour, your character. It needs to be exemplary. We are taught that there are people who fast, all they get from fasting is hunger and thirst. They don't receive any reward because they spend their time arguing or lying or backbiting or gossiping. So it's really a time that you sort of think, what are my bad habits? How do I reform my character? How do I be the best version of myself? I remember when I was young, my father and my sister and I would be arguing, and my father would say, you've broken your fast, by arguing, and it's almost as if you had a bite from a hamburger. So it's not just not eating and drinking, you try and have the best behavior you can. We are not permitted to have intimate relations as well. If you smoke, you're also not supposed to smoke as well.
So no bad language, Sherene, no sort of bad thoughts towards somebody else.
100%. And the idea is, you're not supposed to do that anyway, but the idea is you give up those bad habits for 30 days, then hopefully for the rest of the year you can have a better, have better character. It's almost like sort of a New Year's resolution. So when we break our fast at sunset, so these days it's 7:41, because of daylight savings. When daylight savings ends, it'll be 6:41. It's often done in company, and like I said, we have a decent meal, no Maccas in Ramadan, and then we often would go to prayers at mosque later, about say around 9 o'clock or so, and we also do a lot of reading from the Quran.
Yeah. So and that's pretty much exactly the same for every single day throughout Ramadan. And that evening meal is referred to as iftar.
Clear, that's right. And the morning meal is referred to as suhoor. In some countries they call it sehri, and like you said, the evening meal is iftar. That's right.
And the iftar meal is particularly important from a family perspective. I know in recent times there have been the Muslim community's been embracing the broader community and bringing them in for many iftars, which have grown in size depending on what particular workplace or organisation happens to be organising it. But it does have a very family component to it. Is that correct, Sherene?
100%. I worry a little bit sometimes. For me, as someone who's very active in the Muslim community, there were some Ramadans that I could count the number of times I was at home on my hand. And I feel that COVID sort of allowed us to really reset and really value what Ramadan is about. It's really about spending quality time at home and that self-introspection and just taking things a bit slower. And so I've come out of COVID I do go to the corporate iftars and the community iftars, but I really try and prioritise family. That's something that we need to really consider. Yeah.
You talked about the 5 pillars of Islam. There is a component, I guess. The reason why Ramadan is so incredibly important, or at least what's resonated with me, has certainly been that coming to terms with a set of values which are particularly important within an Islamic faith. Would you mind talking just a little bit more about what those values are and why Ramadan actually helps you to reset in relation to those?
Yeah, 100%. So values like being more grateful. In Ramadan, when you break your fast after you've been fasting for 14 hours or so, and you break your fast with a glass of water, you relish every drop of that water, and it really makes you think, there are people in the world who don't have access to clean drinking water. Normally throughout the day, whatever, I'll have a glass of water, might leave some in my cup, whatever. But when I'm fasting, it really makes me reflect on that, so that these feelings of gratitude and empathy, again, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, very shortly, my stomach will start to rumble and say, why haven't you fed me now? And you feel those pangs of hunger. But there are people who experience those pangs of hunger 23 hours a day. 3,000 children die from malnutrition every year. So in order to understand just temporarily what that feeling is like, that not that everything that I want, that I can just click my hands and just expect it. You know, we've become, I find for myself, very selfish. Oh, don't really like leftovers at home, might get Uber Eats, but nothing wrong with that. But it's important that we reflect on our blessings and our gifts and our privilege that we have. So for me, that empathy, trying to develop that empathy is really important. Develop feelings of gratitude, and also just trying to make sure that I'm managing my emotions. I'm conscious. I'm more mindful of what I'm saying, what I'm doing. Because in Ramadan, like I said, it can break your fast if you lose your temper or if you gossip about somebody. So if you can try and reform your character to be the best version of yourself, it's really important.
So the ramifications of breaking your fast, intentionally or unintentionally, simply that you try harder the next day. There isn't. It's not like that's it. You've done your dash for the next year.
Not at all. And many of us would break our fast unintentionally. Every Ramadan, for example. Especially in the beginning of Ramadan, you're not used to it, and you might actually. There was one time I was actually giving a talk on Islam at a school, and it was the first day of Ramadan, and they put a glass of water, on the table, and I was talking about Islam when I wanted to, help myself to this glass. I'm fasting. So, but we're taught that that's a gift, that there's nothing to feel ashamed about, and that there are people who really struggle with fasting. And that's everyone's on their own personal journey, and whatever you do, it shouldn't be judged by others.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess there are some that play around the edges. They'll do so much, but not more. I guess. I mean, everybody's an individual, so they're making their own choices around what living their faith actually means for them.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. So there are some traditions. So perhaps you could explain that. So that where I'm most familiar at iftars is certainly where there's the call to prayer, and then there's a glass of water and dates. Can you tell us the relevance of dates?
Yeah, sure. So dates is seen to have very high glucose content and very high in nutrition, and it just allows the stomach and the body to start getting ready for the big meal that you're about to have. So it sort of eases you into the process, because when you fast, your stomach tends to shrink. So dates is just it's the tradition of our Prophet Muhammad. So we're encouraged to follow that tradition, but we also believe it has benefits as well. So as you mentioned, the call to prayer is mentioned just to indicate when sunset started and has commenced, and then date and glass of water. A lot of debate around, what dates are the best kind of dates. The very juicy Mejdul dates are the ones that are really popular. But yeah, so dates are highly nutritious and just allows you to sort of just ease yourself into it.
Now, I'm assuming that Muslims are attending prayer during the day, during Ramadan. Is there a particular prayer that is called at the iftar time? And is there some significance to that versus other prayers that they might be experiencing throughout the day?
So we're encouraged to go to the mosque as much as possible, but obviously those of us who have a 9-to-5 office work job, it's a bit prohibitive. But the Maghrib or sunset prayer is a place that we to be honest, we usually break our fast at home, and then we would pray the last prayer, the night prayer called Isha, which commences in around about 9 o'clock. So the late prayer, Isha prayer, is usually done at the mosque, and then we do extra prayers called Taraweeh, which is all voluntary, but we just encourage to do extra prayers.
Yeah. There is, I know in talking to other Muslim friends of mine, there was always a talk about once upon a time, before there became corporate Ramadans, or corporate iftars at least, This was an opportunity to lose weight, that people were quite excited about the fact that maybe they might actually be able to deal with some of those types of issues. And then there was also the fear that it would be really hot like it was last weekend, and you'd be having to fast during a time when it was 37, 38 degrees. So it's not I guess it's it's helping to give some context to a lived religion, which is actually experiencing all these other day-to-day type things that we're all thinking about at the same time.
100%. 100%. I love the one about trying to lose weight. The problem is, though, because we get invited out for iftar dinners so often, we invite people over, you tend to have more variety of foods, and there's also, and your body sort of, I find that sort of craves sweets as well. So I probably have more sweets in Ramadan than I do for the rest of the year. But sometimes I wonder, have we sort of forgotten the true meaning of, of Ramadan in terms of, the way that we sort of feast at the end of our fasting day. But yeah, it's all about moderation, trying to keep everything moderation.
So Sherene, if people are having family over for iftar, are they able to cook before that? But they're just not tasting anything along the way?
That's exactly it. Yeah. So that's also times when you can inadvertently break your fast, so that you just automatically just test or taste something. But and you just wish for the best. I'm a very metric cook, so I have my metric teaspoons. I don't know how people who survive on tasting food go, but yeah, with my trusted metric teaspoons, I'm okay.
Now Ramadan lasts for 30 days.
Yes, so 29 or 30 days.
29 or 30 days. And then at the end, when it's all finishes, there's an event called Eid, but it doesn't happen immediately on that 30th day, does it? Or am I incorrect?
So basically, if you fast for 29 or 30 days, the day after is Eid.
Okay.
So that's when we'll have a quick breakfast, we'll go to the mosque, wear nice clothes, we give charity to the poor, the children get gifts or money, and we usually go visiting. And it's very similar to any other religious festive occasion, Christmas, Diwali, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, where there's that sort of celebratory, sort of festive sort of atmosphere.
Absolutely. Now, many people are here because they're interested in understanding whether or not we should be doing different accommodations during Ramadan within the workplace. So I'm interested in whether or not you think work needs to do anything extra in order to be supportive or to be respectful of Ramadan for those individuals that happen to be within their workplaces.
Yeah, 100%. I think there are little things that workplaces can do that that mean a lot to Muslim colleagues. I think just creating awareness in the workplace that Ramadan is around the corner, and again, not just Ramadan, other religious festivals. It's just nice for there to be some kind of acknowledgement, and just an email or wishing Muslim colleagues a happy Ramadan Kareem. It's just a really lovely gesture. I think it's important for people to know that, to be more mindful that these people are fasting. In addition to being hungry and thirsty, they'll also be a bit sleep deprived, be caffeine deprived. So they might, their energy levels might be a bit low. So people, might think that, oh gosh, she's very quiet. I hope she's not upset with anything that I said to her today. Basically we're just trying to conserve energy and not talk as much.
Especially by 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Exactly. Scheduling meetings in the beginning of the day for something that requires a lot of brain power will probably ensure better outcomes. And I think just checking in with your co-workers or Muslim employees, just how's it all going? Because often Muslims won't want to use they don't want any special privileges or special dispensations. I mean, here at the Islamic Museum, I work at a Muslim workplace. I've been talking, this is my 4th hour of speaking today, and some of the presentations that I have are videotaped. If I lose my voice, thankfully I still have my voice, but I'm really hesitant to use a video of me speaking as opposed to me actually speaking, because I want to do the right thing. I don't want Ramadan to deter me from doing my best work. So it's funny that Muslims will often be really reluctant to ask for any kind of special treatment. So it's nice just to sort of to check in with them. And I was going to also mention about a study in Britain that I think Sally was going to put in the chat about the number one, not references, Muslims rank flexible shift patterns as the most desired support in Ramadan. So it might just be something really minor, that instead of taking a half an hour lunch break, they might work through lunch and then just ask, can they move half an hour earlier? A little bit of flexibility. And I think, again, not just in Ramadan, I think, throughout the whole year, our workplaces need to be a little bit more accommodating and flexible.
Yeah.
For all different backgrounds.
At the Islamic Museum of Australia, you have all sorts of people coming through, and as one of the key directors there, you're interacting with lots of people about the sorts of questions that they might have. Are there any common misunderstandings to do with Ramadan that you come across, that perhaps some myth busting we should think through at the moment?
Yeah, there are some very sensitive individuals who think it's offensive to eat in front of a Muslim colleague. And it's certainly not offensive to eat. There's nothing wrong with it at all. We have one of my colleagues at the Islamic Museum, she's not Muslim and she feels really bad and she has hot chips or, her hot coffee. And I was like, Kim, look, don't apologise. It's all part of the challenge of fasting. We don't live in a bubble. We still have to function and life goes on. So it's not offensive to eat.
But drink water if they've got water on the table at a meeting.
100%. That's absolutely fine. We shouldn't have to impose our rules on everybody else. But maybe just perhaps try and refrain from sort of bullying or teasing your colleagues about not being able to eat and drink. Perhaps, I don't know. There's also I really encourage people to not publicly ask why a Muslim co-worker isn't fasting on a particular day. So, for example, they may have started fasting and then they're not fasting, and then you sort of see them, eating or drinking. That's happened to me and people just assume, you're being a bit cheeky, or you couldn't handle a fast, and you're sort of, you've caved. There are a number of reasons why people don't fast. If you're on any kind of medication, diabetics don't fast. Women who are menstruating don't fast. So there are a number of reasons why people aren't fasting. So to sort of publicly ask why you're not fasting, it's probably not.
No, that makes a lot of sense. But what about asking people about what Ramadan means to them?
100%. I really would encourage people listening today, asking questions, and people. I think that people are really Muslims are really happy to answer questions on Ramadan, and so obviously it's a great learning opportunity. That's how we learn about people that are different from ourselves, and how we sort of replace that sort of fear or ignorance with respect is simply by asking questions and knowing more. So absolutely.
Yeah. Fine. Are there other questions that you get asked regardless of Ramadan, but about the Islamic faith that are probably things that it's worth, because it's one thing if people are fasting within a workplace and you can see that and that that's what's happening, but many times people have other questions about the Islamic faith. Is it an appropriate time to ask that? Is it do you think that there is a point at which you should not necessarily push? Because I know a lot of people are very aware of the fact that there are misunderstandings, that there are assumptions, generalizations about people of the Islamic faith, but sometimes they hold back and don't necessarily ask those questions. Are there situations in which you should not go? As in, if you knew Ramadan was coming up, is it appropriate to ask somebody of the Muslim faith to present to a group of people within the workplace about things over and above simply Ramadan, but the Islamic faith? Or is that putting them in a position where they feel they have to justify why they happen to be Muslim?
That's a really good question, Anthea. I'm really glad that you brought that up. So it's interesting, Muslims are really diverse, and some Muslims would love that opportunity to speak to their workplace formally or informally about Ramadan, and also about their religion as well. Other Muslims I've spoken to sort of feel a little bit hesitant. They say to me, oh, I don't really have the knowledge, I don't have the confidence. So I think if a conversation is had with a Muslim co-worker, just one-on-one, just giving them different options. Say, look, I really want to create more awareness about Islam in the workplace. What do you think the best way of doing it? Would you be happy to have a chat, or would you like us to bring in someone from the Islamic Museum, for example, to talk? So just giving them the option. There was different options. There was one person I spoke to who felt that she was put on the spot, and she didn't know how to say no. She didn't feel comfortable talking about it. She wasn't a practicing Muslim. She said she didn't know very much about Islam, and she happens to observe her religion or more in Ramadan than in any other month of the year. So they knew she was fasting, so they immediately assumed that she'd be the best person to ask. So I think, yeah, it's just trying to avoid putting people on the spot, giving them a variety of options, and yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it is appropriate to ask general questions about Islam. So it might be the first time that co-workers actually, broach the topic, and just try and be a little bit emotionally intelligent, I suppose, with the cues. If you sort of feel someone, non-verbally looks like they don't want to talk about, what's going on around the world, or whatever it is, so sometimes these topics can sort of lead to a whole variety of different discussions.
Yeah.
Just try and take those cues and just be a little bit sensitive, and maybe just short and sweet, as opposed to just bombarding with
yeah. Absolutely. So, Sherene, I mentioned at the beginning that I've had the joy of going to the Islamic Museum and taking a tour with you. I would think that those people that are actually quite interested in knowing more about the Islamic faith and knowing, feeling more comfortable about the sorts of questions that they might want to ask others, taking a tour with you at the Islamic Museum, or with others that are taking the tours, might be a really good first step. Is that a good idea? And can you just perhaps mention a little bit about what people would see when they were there at the museum?
100%. So we would love anyone watching here today to come on a tour at the Islamic Museum. We are open every day except Sundays from 10 to 4, and you can come on your own, just enjoy the place on your own, or you can organise for organise an actual guided tour, or even cultural awareness training as well. So it's a beautiful workplace. We're very grateful to have such a gorgeous space, and we're actually just coming up to our 10-year anniversary. So yeah, gosh, it's gone so fast. And the aim of the museum is we want to encourage people to view Islam through the lens of art and culture and history and heritage. A lot of people think that it's all about, Islam and do's and don'ts. Actually, there's only one gallery about faith. There's Islam's contribution to civilization, there's Islamic art, Islamic architecture, and Australian Muslim history. So it's wonderful to be able to sort of reclaim the narrative on Islam, and also to revive arts in the Muslim community, because for a long time it's created beautiful art and architecture everywhere they went. Now we've sort of moved away from that, so we see it as our role to revive arts in the Muslim community. So it's a gorgeous space. We've had phenomenal feedback from the wider community. We've had school students who've hidden from the school bus, who've been terrified of coming on an excursion. They've forged notes to say they weren't allowed on an excursion, and those same students have said it's been the best excursion they've been on. there was one group that came, it was a Probus Club that came on a mystery tour. And I said to the organiser, I said, well, why are they here on a mystery tour? She said, because if they knew where they were coming, they wouldn't have gotten on the bus. And so when they arrived, the bus driver was all, you know, anxious, and he said, oh my goodness, this group have been banging Muslims for the whole hour's journey. Good luck. I'm like, yeah, no worries, all good. Seen it all before. And there was a 91-year-old woman in that group, and she took me aside. She said, Sherene, you are the first Muslim I've ever spoken to. And for years, I have felt crippled with fear, you know, towards Islam and Muslims. Now I've been here, seen this beautiful place, met Muslims, all that fear has just dissipated. So, like I said, you know, we often just fear the unknown, and we need to create opportunities to get to know one another. So it's
absolutely. And it is in Thornbury. It's in a little side road,
yes,
which is sort of an unexpected location, but it is a beautiful building and has a real Australian feel to it certainly the architecture on the outside. And it's a wonderful place. And when you talk about art, it also has both modern Muslim Australian art as well as, you know, representation of older art. But Muslims have been in Australia for a very long time, haven't they, Sherene? I know the very first mosque is a little dilapidated sort of wooden, thing somewhere that was built a long time ago.
Yes. Well, one thing a lot of the visitors comment on, Muslim visitors and visitors that are not Muslim, they didn't realise that the first Muslims to come to Australia were Makassar fishermen who came from what we now refer to as Indonesia. And they were trading with First Nations people in the 1600s, 1700s, and they kept coming for centuries until about 1906. So a lot of people had no idea about the Makassar fishermen. And then we had the Afghan cameleers who came in the 1800s, built railway tracks and telegraph lines. So yeah, there's a lot of really fascinating facts, and then not all the cameleers were Muslim, but the Muslim cameleers were preferred over the non-Muslim cameleers because Muslims don't drink alcohol. So in that way, the explorers were sure that their grog, you know, was safe. If they had a Muslim with them. So yeah, there's lots of, you know, gems.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a fabulous place, and I would encourage everybody to go. Sherene, we're going to give you a little bit of a rest for a minute so that you don't have to keep talking and just really talk to Sally. I should say, though, that the Islamic Museum has very wonderfully helped us in putting together the materials for A Taste of Harmony this year, and the materials related specifically to Ramadan, as well as a wonderful video that I would hopefully everybody online will have had the opportunity to go and see. But Sally Tyrrell, who is our project manager for A Taste of Harmony, I just thought I might ask you, Sally, to talk a little bit about how we went about addressing what is a regular annual campaign, A Taste of Harmony, but now it overlaps this time with Ramadan. So how did we actually go about addressing that, and what are some of the resources that are available for everybody?
Yeah, sure. And thank you so much, Sherene. I really have learned so much just from that 30, 40 minutes. I was telling my 7-year-old daughter last night that I was taking part in the webinar today, and she was asking about Ramadan and who participates, but I feel like I need to go back and do it again because you've just given me so much knowledge. So thank you very much. But yeah, we look, it was a challenge, I think, initially, because we knew that we would have an overlap, and as everybody knows, A Taste of Harmony is all based around sharing a food, in that we're inviting people to bring a dish to represent their cultural background, and knowing that there would be some people potentially in the workplace that were fasting and wouldn't be able to participate, we were really quite worried about not wanting anybody to feel excluded from A Taste of Harmony, because that would absolutely contradict with what A Taste of Harmony is all about. So we did consider whether or not do we move it entirely to a different month. But in the end, we thought it's just a really great opportunity to actually provide some education around Ramadan in the workplace. And I think today has been, a wonderful example of that. But one of the main things that we've done this year is that we've expanded our dates. So typically A Taste of Harmony takes place over 2 weeks in March, but we've expanded it to run over a month. So we start on Monday the 18th of March, but we're running through until the 19th of April. And having said that, I know April's a busy month as well. We've got school holidays and Easter and all sorts of things. So you can take part anytime in April. All of the resources and all of the things in our event hub will be available if people want to host their events in April. So yeah, having the expanded dates was one of the things that we did. And then, as Anthea mentioned, we have this wonderful partnership with Sherene and the Islamic Museum, and they've been very kind in helping us produce the materials, so that what we hope workplaces might do during March is to utilise some of those resources that are on our website. So we've got a dedicated Ramadan page. So we've, as Anthea mentioned, there's a video there with featured Sherene and one of our chef ambassadors, Samira El Kafair, who many of you might know from MasterChef, and they talk a bit about Ramadan and what it is and what it means to them. We also have a fact sheet that was provided by the Islamic Museum, which is really a summary of some of the things that Sherene's talked about today. And then we've got a guide for how workplaces can manage having a Taste of Harmony events with Ramadan happening at the same time.
Thanks, Sally. I should say, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. We'd be delighted to, and we have time to deal with some of those questions. I think, though, it's really important to reiterate that the whole intention of a Taste of Harmony is to allow workplaces, work teams to come together and to really talk about things that they might not necessarily have felt that they were able to discuss in other meetings or other forums within a workplace. So I know Sherene mentioned at one point that they don't necessarily know when's the right time to broach particular topics that relate to people's cultures. And one of the real important points of bringing work teams together around food and food that is representative of people's heritage is that opportunity of opening up and starting to ask people questions about those cultures and learn a little bit more about what those backgrounds are from about the diversity of the people that you've got on your work team. So we're really thrilled that so many people, and there are a lot of teams. I think, Sally, that how many work teams are there at the moment that have registered?
So we're over 10,000 teams now, and we've got almost 160,000 people. So yeah, it's definitely a lot of people will be taking part over the next month.
Yeah, so it's very exciting, and I would encourage everybody to want to get on board with everybody else that's joining in a Taste of Harmony, because it's such a wonderful experience to have. I can't see any questions in the chat, so I'm assuming that Sherene has pretty much covered it all. But if there are any, I'll give you another minute or so to put anything in there. But otherwise, I think it's probably just encouraging individuals, but even teams, to schedule a time to go and visit the Islamic Museum, and to encourage everybody to please register so that we can tell others just how many people are actually participating in a Taste of Harmony. It's a really fabulous time. And we at the Scanlon Institute are having our event next Monday. So all of us are thinking quite a lot about exactly what we're going to be bringing. So thank you, everybody, very much for attending. I really appreciate it enormously. There is a question which says, how can converts best approach Ramadan in the workplace, even if they are not visibly Muslim?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there's a lot of Muslims as well who are sort of under the radar that people don't understand, that don't realise that they are Muslim. I mean, if you're comfortable, it means it's an opportunity just to take your boss aside and just explain, I'm Muslim, I might not outwardly be Muslim, but I am, and just use it as an opportunity just to let them know what the situation is. But well, I think someone's mic's on.
Yeah, Rachel, I think your mic is on.
Sorry. And there's also an organisation called Benevolence. They provide support for converts. So if you need any additional support, Benevolence can help as well. That's
a really good question, because it's not one that many of us think about. So And that's so true. There are many people that follow different faiths and we would have no idea. So it's important to know that they've got support. So thank you. There is another question, I think, which says we're planning to celebrate Harmony Day at the end of term 2. So that sounds like a school. Love Harmony Day. Thanks, Sherene. Very useful talk. So that's great. Terrific to see. And it looks like everybody's enjoyed the conversation. So Sherene, Sally, thank you all very much. And we'll let everybody else get on with their day and hopefully enjoy an iftar tonight if they can.
Yes,
So,
and I'll send out an email. Thanks so much to everyone that registered today. I'll send out just an email just with some of those links that Sherene provided. I'll also send a link to our Ramadan page, and as I said, really encourage everyone to utilise those resources. And thank you so much, Sherene. It's been such a wonderful insight from you, and hopefully everybody's feeling a lot more confident about Taste of Harmony in Ramadan. But if you've got any queries at all, please feel free to contact me. There's a contact@tasteofharmony email address, which is on all the EDMs, so feel free to reach out at any time.
Thanks so much, Sally. I just wanted also to mention the cultural awareness training. We can do it at the Islamic Museum. We can also do it at your workplace, or we can do an online version as well. And for schools, the same thing as well. We can do professional development for teachers at your school, at the Islamic Museum, or online. So yeah, please get in touch if that's something that you might feel that you might benefit from.
Actually, Sherene, I can put in, I think you've provided me some information about that training. So in the EDM, I can put in a link to that and a link on how to get in touch with you as well if anyone's interested. But I'm definitely going to take my daughter along to the Islamic Museum in the school.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sherene. Thank you, Sally. Have a lovely afternoon.
Yeah.